Hi viewers, welcome back to the Way of Positive Change. I'm Lori and I will not be on camera today as we're going to focus in on the signatures of the young Donald Trump, the middle Donald Trump, and the President Donald Trump. So a few people expressed interest in graphology, which is the study of handwriting analysis. And so we're going to take a look and see the different changes that have taken place over the years in his life. It's sort of a lost art. I used to do it, include it in all of my readings. Of course, I started reading in 1990. So, but people don't write very much anymore, do they? All right. So let's start off with the first one here. You can see that his letters are more rounded. He's more trusting, more imaginative. He is. I just want to point out that the first name, middle name, and last name are all separate from one another. They don't all run together. So he's a little bit more trusting of his own intuition, and he uses his imagination when he's younger. We can see that because whenever you don't connect letters between the D and the O, or the J and the O, whenever there's breaks like that, it shows that you have a little bit more intuition, a little more of your gut feeling, a psychic ability. So when he was younger, he used that more, which is and it was a little bit more creative too. He liked being with people. You can see that he goes, the slant is up and to the right just a smidgen here, but then he has a few letters that go backwards, the L, the D, the T. So he was a little standoffish. He wanted to observe people. He liked to observe. So he wasn't quick to jump in to be your friend, even when he was young. So if you take a look at the D here, it's very inflated. It's large, blown up. It shows that he was very sensitive to criticism, what other people thought of him, or flattery. It really affected him very much what other people thought. I think that probably came from his parents. Also, you can see that his vowels, they are closed, but they have little loops and spikes, which means that he could tell a big fib when he was younger. But he was just a little bit more independent and he believed in himself a little bit more. He separated his names. He doesn't have it attached to the strength in the last name. And yet he comes to not like part of what his family stood for later on in his signature when he X's everything out here. We'll get to that. Okay, so he was more loving, more imaginative. He had a better sense of humor, caring, rounded, and much more affectionate. So something happened in Donald Trump's life because, as we see here, he starts to lose any of the rounded fluffiness in his writing or personality and becomes much more spiked and exacting and harsh, very analytical, more analytical. All right, in his midlife, then gone is the intuition, gone is the imagination. He's not working with that anymore. It's more analyzing. He still has some of that slant going here, a little bit towards the left here, and you can see the stability in the last name. He has some points going this way and some this way. So during this period of time in his life, he wasn't sure. He wasn't very good at making important decisions here and doubted himself. So it showed that he didn't make the greatest decisions. So also now the D is more pointed and it doesn't have, it's not as round like we said. Anytime you have these big high points, it means you have a need to be noticed, to be heard, possibly to be famous or to be seen. Definitely wants to be seen. All of these spikes, though, do mean that he thinks quick. Thinking in quick actions in the spikes, but it doesn't mean quick like in an emergency and you would know what to do. That's more like just He thinks fast and can make, rash decisions, but it's more the quick thinking, and he does believe that his thoughts are right, whether they are or they are not. Okay, flashes and thoughts. All right, so we're going to take a look at this first D. So you notice that when he goes through on the O, he X's out his first letter D, the first letter of his name. So anytime we have X's in signatures, it means that there's something very much that we doubt about ourselves. We have guilt, doubt, we don't like who we are, we don't want other people to see who we are, and sometimes we doubt our importance when we X ourselves out like that. So anytime that I was reading for someone and their first letter and the second letter were crossed like that, I would tell them, separate those letters, because you can change your handwriting and change your life with these little different nuances. Okay, so and then he goes on. Now you can see that he's connecting the first name to the middle initial and the last name. So he's dependent on this last name, but he doesn't want anybody to know it. That's where those X's are there. And he completely lost the T bar of his T, which is his ability to follow through on things and commitment. So he was sporadic in his ability to he'd make promises and he would break them, and he couldn't follow through on some of his goals. Also, now this D that was big here has shrunk down, and it's somewhat reminiscent of what they call a felon's claw. And this one's even enclosed. So remember we were talking about, when you do these loop-de-loops in here, it's the ability to tell a lot, or the inclination that, that someone's telling lies. So the enclosed felon's claw, in a sort of the reverse drawing of he goes into the D in a backwards way, shows rebellion and angst towards others, provokes others, and he can't get along with others for any length of time. Again, with the commitments and the vacillation in his name. He's not even sure about how he felt about the connection to who he is, who he's not, and who his father was with this, the X's here. Also, this shows with this D, with this P, it shows protection over his family, protection over his secrecy with intimacy. It's the only letter that goes down into the lower zone. So in handwriting, we have the upper, the middle, and the lower. And it's the only letter that goes down. So it circles over the last name like an umbrella, and then it dips down to the low zone, which means he's weak or vacillating with his willpower and his goals, but also in his sexuality. It shows that he has to change, either change partners, or has to have a lot of variety and secrecy over it, the umbrella. So that's what that means. These X's are this felon's claw is really, really important. Normally, it's kind of like two things in one. Normally, it's not enclosed like that, but the fact that it is enclosed and he starts really shading in here shows the deception. I mean, the P you can't even see in there, and he's having more thoughts, a little bit more anger. You can see that when he was writing here, of course, he's not using a felt tip pen, but you can see in this writing, the pressure changes a little bit between the big D and the little d, but here the pressure is more, and he's impassioned in whatever he thinks. If he thinks something is true, then he's passionate about that. If he thinks that it's not true, he's passionate about that. It just shows that there's an emphasis on how he feels, not about how other people feel, but about how he feels and what he thinks is right and wrong. All right, so then we go on to, and I'll go back to pick up a couple of other things. We go on to this signature when he's president. Now you can see that we get even more pasty, and we're filling in all the letters, which means so much secrecy. And it's all angles, all this, high pitch. Of course, I want to be noticed. And now the D is even larger than the P or the T. And again, we don't even have any lead in like we do to the T here. It's just, there's no top to this. It's a topless T, which means we can't follow through with our goals. Our tenacity to follow through with our goals it's just not there. Okay, so the hard angles and cramped letters means he just really doesn't have compassion for others. It shows pettiness, narrow-mindedness, and he hides this. He pretends, so the persona that he shows and that he appears to be in public is quite different than who he is. And he doesn't really want people to know, how he feels or discover how he really feels about others. So it's very secretive. And even here, though, see how these, after the first D, see how this slants back just a teensy bit to the left? So it's like an inversion. So he doesn't want, it's very secretive. He is watching others. When he makes these efforts to be friends with Kim and Putin, it's just really to be known. It doesn't mean that he really actually has affection for them. He wants the power that they have, but he doesn't really have affection towards them. So that's a little different maybe than what people thought. Again, so we see this, P going up here. It's even more closed in, and it goes up to the upper zone and the lower zone. So it shows sexual restlessness and imagination. He thinks about it a lot, which of course, some of that's normal, right? But a need for continuous change. Again, it's the only letter that dips down into the lower zone. Also, when you look, I don't have a sample of this here, but what else I saw online was that when Donald Trump is writing a letter or autographing something, he writes in all capitals, but he prints it. So it's very important to notice that there's an extreme difference between his signature and his printed writing. So again, who he portrays himself to be isn't exactly how he feels when he's by himself, or who he actually really is, because there's such a difference. So this is like a fakey him, and then there's the real him, or vice versa. And writing in all caps, and it's still pasty and very thick, so it shows some anger, some hostility, selfishness, and a passion about what he wants, and there's a total inability to share here, and really just doesn't care about or feels caring, passionate towards other. I'm sure there's some differences with his immediate family, but boy, this is really, it's difficult signature. It has a lot of telltale signs in it, with the even beginning when he was younger with these, of course we all lie, but it just starts to get worse and worse, and then it's just like, I'll still let you see in the O, and the A, and now we're just completely shaded in, and you're just not going to know anything about what I'm doing. I'm not going to let you know anything. It's all, just thought, no feeling, all very analytical of others. So he's good at observing and watching others. And he likes to, actually, even with some of this here, he doesn't like who he is, so he tries to emulate others in power, and that would mean, his desire to be with Kim and with Putin and with MBS. He desires to have the power that they have. All right, so that is about the best I can do in a brief synopsis of his handwriting, the handwriting analysis for Donald Trump. If you have any questions, or if you want me to look at a greeting card that you have that has the writing of somebody that you want to be analyzed, you can email me at The Way of Positive Change. And thank you very much for subscribing, and hit that like button. And I'm going to come back tomorrow, and I'm going to do a reading on the 4th of July celebration that he's trying to put together, and see how that's going to go. All right, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.